This is Lenny Torgerson. Engineering Tips today is going to have 3 parts. I'm going to start with the April updates about ODOT quantities for Sawcuts, move into a brand new FAQ that will affect survey, mostly about spiral offsets, and then I will hand it over to Kevin Laverdure to talk about the survey confidence point workflow. Let me get right into it. On the East website is, of course, the East PDF list, which I have already brought up. On the East PDF list, there are 2 places that you can access the WorkSpace updates. It's in our standards and feature definitions, but also down under other, there's WorkSpace updates. I've got it open. So last month, we made changes to, I'm just going to focus on the stuff that I want to talk about. We made changes to quantity.cell. That is a cell library that a place label command will use. It's just a microstation place label. It's not the civil labeler. These are just regular microstation labels. But I put in a new text favorites and that allowed for level separation. I've got more levels and more cells. It's to deal with the separation between materials that we might do for saw cutting, either asphalt or concrete, and then within the material, the depth. What is the depth? We've got 3 groups, less than 6 inch, 6 to 14 inch, and greater than 14 inches. We also updated the ODOT quantities, features, levels, element template, text favorite, DGN lib to provide 12 new levels for level separation and element templates. There's also feature definitions and symbologies. So if you want to place these things as features using your civil products, you can. But if you just want to place them using the microstation tools, those commands will be on your ODOT quantities ribbon workflow. And I'm going to show you how those appear. I have got open roads already open. And this is actually open to a screenshot that I took of for the FAQ with everything turned off. And I wanted to point out that if you change your ribbon workflow from, drawing or open roads modeling, open site modeling to ODOT quantities, there is at the far right a quantities tab. This quantity tab has been changed in the last month to provide 3 choices from the Sawcut asphalt choice. I think this might be called a split button, but I can't remember. And I don't think it matters, but this is in the place, lines, and shapes area. So there is one for asphalt and one for concrete, also with the same depth. So if you want to see how you use it, you would choose one of these. Let me choose Sawcut concrete 6 to 14 inches. It sets an element template. It takes me into the place smart line command where I can draw a line. And I can, make it as long as I want. So I've got a line drawn. It uses specific symbology. If I use my element selection, I get the pop-up, or I can look at the properties. Over in the properties, I can see that it's using a level named Q for the quantities, Sawcut concrete depth 6 to 14 inch. So you have level separation, and you can see that appear. I've been using several, and I've got all these Q levels that are coming from that other design library, that level library. And as you use these, you will have the ability to separate the levels. Then you can label them. So over in the label lines and shapes group, you can see I've got Sawcut asphalt and Sawcut concrete. If I draw the line and then I don't remember what it was, I can hover over it and it tells me in the pop-up that that is 6 to 14 inch. It's Sawcut concrete 6 to 14 inch. That information is in the level name, it's in the level description. So I can label it with Sawcut concrete 6 to 14 inch. I choose the command. Make sure you set the command up with whether or not you want a leader. I always want a leader for some reason. And then whether you want it to be associated to the element. So if you move the element or change the element, it will update. But I'm going to just select, it says place label typically. I'm going to select the point that I want it to put the arrowhead on. So maybe I want it to put the arrowhead on that angle point. So I'm going to select it and then move my mouse off, and it's displaying for me the information. I get to place that. It uses the same color, the same similar level. It uses the text level, and it tells me how long that line is. That full line is 27.1 feet. Now, I had an area where I used the Sawcut to draw a shape. Yeah, you can absolutely use these to draw shapes. I'm going to use the greater than 14 inches, and I'm going to draw a shape, and I just close it on itself by snapping to the original location. What is that element? It should still be a line string, but it's actually converted it to a shape because it closed on itself. But it still has length, like a perimeter, right? So if I label this, what was that? That was asphalt greater than 6, greater than 14. So if I go to my asphalt greater than 14 inches, this is a length. If I just go ahead and snap to a corner, I can see that it's going to give me the length of the line, and it's 86.6 feet long is the length of that line. But that is actually an area. Maybe I want the area as well. Okay, cool. I actually had those added. If you look at the label area, you'll notice that there are two additions. There is a generic length text and a generic area text, and you can use these. Here's the generic length. It's still set up the same way. I'm going to choose the same line, and it just says length is 86.6 feet. If I choose the generic area, it uses a different cell, and I'm going to select, doesn't even matter, I can choose a different corner, I can choose the same corner, and there's the area. It's 321.1 square feet. So whether or not you want to use it, I mean, if you don't want to use it, don't poke the button, right? If you want to use it, that's how it works. These things are a generic label. They go on the default level because they're generic. What this is doing is it's actually placing element templates in your active file in the quantity folder. So if I wanted to modify the element template to put it on a different level, for example, you can absolutely modify anything that's copied. And here's the generic shape. If you don't want it to be on the default level, if you want it to be on something else, you can change the level. I would change it in the element template. That changes it whenever it's used later on. If you want to change it in what's placed, you can always just select the item and change its level from wherever you have, there's text node, there's the level. You can change its level here and provide level separation or get it off of the default level. So that's that. Let me move on to the other thing I wanted to show you, which was a new FAQ. The FAQ is on the FAQ page, and at the very top of the page, I'm going to just zoom in to the issue. The picture of the issue is actually at the bottom of the FAQ. And what you'll see is you'll see a white line drawn perpendicular to the alignment at the PS on the main line. So follow my red dot. The PS on the main line is where my red dot is. And I've drawn a perpendicular line. I drew two offsets. And the offset, they're 100 feet away, so I could kind of magnify the effect of what's happening. When a command that uses an option called use spiral transition, when that is enabled, it actually creates a true clothoid spiral on the offset, but it does not maintain the beginning point of that spiral or the ending point, and you can see that it's no longer perpendicular to the point of spiral on the main line. That's an issue. We don't work that way here at ODOT, and that's what this FAQ explains. What we want is we want to create offsets where the PS is the same on all the offsets as it is on the main line. It's offsetted 100 feet from, or 40 or whatever from that point of spiral, and the point of tangency or the point of spiral to curve also needs to be directly perpendicular to the main line point of tangency or point of spiral to curve. So this explains to you how to disable that option to use a spiral transition. So we don't use it. I'll just show you how that works. If I am on the roadway modeling, in the geometry section, offsets and tapers, I can choose any of these commands to create an offset. I'm just going to use the single offset entire element to get the tool settings to show. And there it is. Use spiral transitions. You will notice it opens up by default. It enables by default. At ODOT, you need to uncheck this. That's the only way to have those offsets exactly match that perpendicular line at the PS and the PSC or the PT. So we don't want to enable that. If you have any questions about that, you can always give somebody on East or Kevin a jingle. Or give us a call on Teams. We can explain that further. What I want to do now is turn this over to Kevin to take us through a brand newly updated workflow for confidence point analysis, I think it is. Kevin Lauder-Doer.
Thanks, Lenny. So hopefully everybody's getting my screen. I'm just going to start right in. Confidence points are something that is primarily a survey function, but sometimes other disciplines need to do them. We need to do them at like survey handoff to construction to make sure our terrains are still active, true, that the world hasn't changed underneath what we mapped when we started the project. And so this is, like Lenny said, not a new process. It's been like this for a while. It's just our documentation has been behind. I've fallen behind. And so we just want to go over what the current process is, how to perform the steps, and then show you what the output is. So I'm starting with an active terrain file. I have created this demo terrain file. It's just a 3D drawing or a 3D seed with the survey data imported. I've got a survey field book in here called MATLAB OG. Imported all the survey data and then created the terrain from that. And so this active terrain is in here. And where we're going to start is with the import of the confidence points. Confidence points are sometimes collected during data collection, and so they will be in the data file already. Other times they're collected after the main data collection. Either way works, and for the initial process, the confidence points can be in the same field book as the rest of the field data. We don't have to worry. Automatically, when the terrain is created, it filters out any confidence points. It does not use them for terrain creation, so we don't have to worry about a conflict of using those points in the terrain itself. So what I want to do is I am on the survey workflow or the survey ribbon, and I'm going to go to field book. And since I already have an active field book, all I need to do is say I want to import a file. It's going to ask me to identify my field book. And that's going to ask me which file do I want to input? And I've got one here that's called Confidence Points Original. So I'm going to open it. And because it's a CSV, it automatically knows the correct template to import the data with. And you notice we get our confidence points showing up in our graphics now. These are basically the original raw confidence points. These are the symbols for what type of confidence point it is. And now that we have that point data in the field book, it's very, very easy to start the process of creating the confidence point report. First thing you want to do is open the survey details. And then I'm going to go into my survey field book. I'm going to expand all point features. And I'm going to create a selection set of the point features that I want to report on. So CPG is confidence point graded, confidence point natural, confidence point rugged, and confidence point surfaced. Notice it has all of those field codes in this list now. So I have one list that has 52 items. If I click just data point, left click in the upper left corner, that creates a selection of the entire contents of the details window here. Now I can right click in this lower lighter blue bar and I can say selection. I want to create a selection set from this data. And if I move this to the side, you can see I've selected all of those confidence points throughout the whole set. I'll double check. I knew I had 52 items. I've got 52 items selected, so I have them all. I'm going to move that off to the side. So now we have our selection set made. We can go to terrain. Under analysis, we want to go to points and analyze elevation. Now we're going to follow the on-screen prompts. We're going to select the terrain. So that could be the boundary, that can be a triangle, anything in that terrain. We want MATLAB OG for the terrain, so I'm going to select that. Now it's going to say data point to use selected elements. Yes, data point. And then enter tolerance value, parameters for tolerance value. You can leave this at 0. We could set it to 1/10 of a foot. It doesn't matter because this is Bentley's tool. It's going to analyze against a set tolerance value, but our custom report is actually going to analyze to the values that we need it to. So this could be 0 or it could be any number that you want. So now that we've selected all that, the Bentley tool has run. It's checked those points against the terrain. And what you're noticing is Bentley's default terrain check report. We want a custom report. So we're going to go to the custom section up here. We're going to expand that drop-down arrow. And we have a couple of terrain options here. ODOT terrain confidence point report is our first one. So when I select that style sheet, it is going to format the data into what is our current confidence point report. It's going to give us a summary at the top of the sheet here of all the different types. So surfaced points, graded points, natural points, rugged points. It has what our tolerance is for each of those point types. It gives us a count and it shows us what our pass and or our fail, our 3 times fail, and then the percentages. Down below, you get the tabular listing of each of the confidence points. where it is, what the terrain elevation was compared to the point elevation, what the terrain model delta is, and what that result leads to, either a pass, a fail, or down here a 3 times fail. And it's color coded to help your eyes find the problems quicker. Also notice it gives you an indication. There's 3 points here that are off the surface. So we have 3 confidence points that are outside of our surface. So essentially they're invalid. They don't do anything for us. But they're still listed because we can track everything and keep track of it all. So this is your report. The best way to save this report is to go File, Save As, and save it as a web page. So you want to save it as an HTML. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go to my work folder where I'm storing all this, and I'm going to name this key, and it's just got a fake key number, but I'm going to keep it key 999. I'm going to call it confidence point report, and I'm going to call it 01. And I want to use a counter on these because confidence point analysis should not be thought of as a one and done. It is an iterative process. And so you're going to want to keep the first report, and then you're going to run it again once you fix the problems. And you're going to keep the second report. And so this way we can just keep that running narrative of what we're doing with the confidence points. Want to make sure it says save as HTML, and then I'm going to save it. And now we can go over to our confidence point report, HTML. And if I open it, it opens up in a browser window. And from here, if you want to print it, you could print it directly. You could print it to a PDF if you wanted it to save as a PDF. You can do what you need to with it from here. Now, we're not done with this report data though, because the other thing that the confidence point analysis does is we're going to make a processed point input file so that we can visualize where all these are at. This is a small example, but with a large terrain, this could come out very handy. Helps you visualize where things are at, where problems are happening. So still under the custom, we're going to choose ODOT terrain confidence point out text. This is going to create a custom text file that has key codes about what the conditions are. So this is confidence point surfaced and then passed. It has some attribute data that will be used on the import, and it's just in a simple text file. So we want to save that too. So I'm going to do a file, save as, and this time I'm going to do ASCII text. I just want a plain text document. So I'm going to go back. I'm still in my work folder. So I'm going to name it the same, generally the same, right? Confidence point. I'm going to call it confidence point processed. 01. I'm going to do a save, make sure it still says text. And now I've got all of that data that I need from this one run. I'm going to close the Simple Report browser. I'm going to go back to my drawing. And notice I still have my selection set. So I'm going to click in the black space just to clear my selection set. The other thing is I could have used clear selection set from here too. So now the second step is to actually bring those process points back into your DGN. And the thing that's critical here is they are still using the same point numbers as the raw points. And Bentley can only understand one version of the same point number. So that means you cannot import the processed confidence points back into the same field book. So we're going to need to create a second field book that's going to hold the processed confidence points data. So I'm going to go back to the field book tab. I'm going to choose new field book. And for the name, we're going to type MATLAB confidence point. Yeah, fingers on the wrong key. Processed. Now you can see we have our second field book. So we have MATLAB OG and we have MATLAB confidence point processed. Right now it's empty. There's no data files in it. So I'm going to want to import. And now it's going to ask me, what do I want to import? Which file do I want to import? So if I go to my work folder where I was keeping those, I know it's this confidence point processed, but I need to do one more thing. And that is I need to set the text import. And so if you go to file types here, select the drop down, you're going to get a list of text import wizard. That's what TIW is, Oregon DOT, and then we've got a couple of different text files here. Well, I know I'm going to be bringing in confidence point processed files. So I'm going to choose that type. It's not only going to filter what my options are to import, but it also sets the import wizard for the survey data input. I'm going to select the file, choose open. And watch as it processes through. And now, well, this is a little difficult to see because we've got graphics from two different field books showing up in the same spot because they're going to be in the same spot. So what I can do is I can go back to my original field book and I could turn off the whole data file that is the confidence points that we imported, or I can go off and turn off the codes that make up the confidence points that are in that MATLAB OG work. Now, I don't have duplicate items in the same space. All I have is the symbols that were imported with the processed confidence points. Now, what this shows you is by the shape of the symbol, it shows you what the confidence point is. So the hexagons are graded points. The circles are surfaced points. And by the color, it shows you whether they pass. So white is pass, blue is fail, and red is 3 times fail. Now, this is the iterative process, right? The whole idea of confidence points is to make sure that our terrains are accurately depicting the ground that's out there. We've taken enough points, we've taken enough points in the proper places, and everything's working. And we can have a certain amount of failures, but every failure does deserve to be looked at to make sure it's not a blunder on our part. And we cannot have any 3 times failures. If you get a 3 times failure, we have to go figure out why that's a 3 times failure. So this is the 3 times failure. I'll be honest, I created this 3 times failure myself, just so we'd have something to talk about. And if we start to turn this 3D world on its edge, you can see why that's a 3 times failure. The confidence point is below the grate, it's below the curb line, it's below, all of the data in this area looks good. Why is the confidence point so low? That's a blunder. So that's the iterative process. We would rate this one. Oh, something happened when we collected that confidence point. It's a blunder. Remove that confidence point. And we'd rerun it again to show that now we don't have a 3 times failure. Some of these others, oops, here I go again. This guy right here is a 0.44. It's in a natural area. Well, we might have to go to the field and figure out maybe we didn't catch a break line there exactly right. Maybe we need a little bit more data in this area. Let's go back to the top view. So that's how you would process this in an active terrain file. Do it right in the file. Now, the other thing we could do is I'm going to leave this terrain file set up, and I'm going to say, what would happen if you were doing that construction, the survey handoff package in construction? We need to go back out. You may take some additional confidence points. You're going to take confidence points today so that you can see that the ground today is still what it was, 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, whenever it was we started the terrain file. And this is somebody else's work. You don't want to mess with somebody else's terrain file. You can always do this with a working file. So I'm going to create a new working file, and I'm going to create it out of a 3D seed because it is going to have survey data in it. Remember, the only times we use the 3D seed file is if it's a terrain or if it has survey data in it. Since we're going to be manipulating survey data and we're going to be doing terrain type checks, it's the proper seed file to use. Oops, I want to call it survey key. I'm just going to keep it those. I'm just going to call this a civil file. Work 01. Just my civil working file. First thing I want to do is I want to reference in that terrain. So I'm going to go get the project OG terrain file. I can do coincident world because I'm just taking, I know it's in the default model. I just want that terrain. And now I've got pretty much a blank drawing. Notice there's no used levels. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a survey field book in here. And we're going to call it new confidence points. I'm going to import that confidence point file because now we can pretend that that confidence point file that we have is from something we went out and gathered last week. So I'm going to open it. I'm going to get those same graphics that are in here. I'm going to open my details. Survey details, I should say. I'm going to drill into, and in this case, I can just pick all point features because the only data that's in here are just those confidence points. Going to do the exact same thing. Going to make a selection out of those and then create an actual selection set of the graphics. We're going to go to terrain, analyze points, analyze elevation. And remember, I can select the terrain that's in a reference. I'm going to data point to use selected elements. Remember, the tolerance value doesn't really matter. I'm going to go back to custom. I'm going to go to my confidence point report. And I can do the exact same thing here. I can save this confidence point report. I can save the text file. And then just like before, we can't put those same points into this field book because of the same point number. So we're going to put them into a new field book. So I called it new confidence points processed. I'm going to import a file. We are going to import the confidence points processed text file. I almost did it out of order there. I want to choose my confidence points process template. Then I can choose my text file. And now I say open. I can turn off that whole field book because it's just confidence points. I don't need it for all the terrain data. The terrain data is coming from the reference file. And now we've got those same symbols. And if I wanted to, I could even turn off the original terrain file. And now we have a file that's just raw confidence points, and then also processed confidence points. And just to keep track, notice the processed confidence point file does bring back in the 3 that were outside of the surface so that you never lose track of all the confidence points. That is everything.
I have a question for you.
Okay, go for it.
When you were importing your new confidence points, into this civil working file. I noticed that you did not select a text import wizard, even though there is a text import wizard for CSV files. And
Correct.
it worked okay. Is that because it's the first one listed? It's kind of the default that's used. So it's not necessary to choose it?
That's because it's the only CSV file that's listed.
So you don't have to choose it.
Right. So if you were to look down this list, this list not only contains Oregon, but it also contains other ones that Bentley includes. And notice that there are a couple of other TXT files. Here, let me.
But no other CSV, so
correct.
It uses that one. So I guess I can be anal with my process. I always like to do things the same way. So there's nothing lost though in setting the filter to CSV.
Nope.
And then picking which CSV that you want to load. Okay.
Correct.
Nothing lost. It does the same thing. I just wanted to verify that. Thank you.
And the other thing that I will show, just as a little more in-depth behind the hood, if you were to pick TXT, just like you're like, oh, I forgot to do that step. Whenever there's a choice, Bentley stops and says, wait a minute, which TXT file do you have?
Oh, that's nice. So it doesn't make any assumptions. It just says, I've got multiple text import wizards. You got to tell me which one to use. That's correct. A really nice fail-safe. Okay.
So yes, so there is a fail-safe behind that. And if we add another CSV to that list, then this fail-safe is what you would see.
Right.
For those that are in our survey offices, if you wanted to do the confidence points in a working file and not directly in the terrain, that's a viable workflow also. Generally,
construction offices is probably the preferred workflow.
Yes.
Because they would be referencing the published or the container file.
Correct.
That was done. So preferred option to work in a civil working.
And if you do have a container file of terrains, having that civil working file to do your confidence points in means, you can select any one of the active terrains that are in that container file. You can, so if you did have multiple terrains, it would be very easy to get between them.
Nice. Thank you, Kevin, so much for presenting this.